Hey, Facebook, YouTube, and Periscope people. This is Bryce and TJ. Not TJ. This is Paw and Bryce. I was about to say Bryce and his little brother's name. And we're back tonight for the second video in our 4-video series where we're talking about Children's Grief Awareness Month. And tonight's video, we're going to talk about the 6 tools that kids can use to help them on their grief journey, to help them heal on their grief journey.
Yes.
Now, first of all, thank you all for the response we got last week. And it was really good. And a lot of people made comments and reached out to us and liked and shared the video. So we appreciate that for you all. And we're real excited about doing another video with y'all.
Yes.
Right? And last week, I remember part of the thing that we did and what actually made this week come about. Last week, you talked a lot about the different things that you did to make you feel better, like right then when you were feeling sad.
Yes.
Because you mentioned crying and things like that, that it would actually help you feel better right then while you were grieving. Right?
Yes.
And so with that, we decided to try to come up with some tools to talk about things that help you with your grief for the rest of the journey or during the long haul of the journey of grief.
Yes,
right?
sir.
And so when I asked Bryce what those things could be, one of the first things that he said was prayer as one of the major tools to help children heal their grief.
Yes.
Which blessed my heart that you said that. But what do you mean by prayer? What do you mean by that?
When you feel sad about not when you feel sad, you can pray to God to help you feel better about your grief.
Go ahead.
Every night you can.
Every night, what?
Every night, so every night you can pray to God about tomorrow and your grief today to help you to make it through tomorrow.
Okay, now you pray mostly at night, but kids, don't get distracted.
Sorry.
Don't get distracted. When kids, you pray mostly at night because you said at night is when your brain gets blank and you can think about sad stuff.
Yes, sir.
Right? But you can kind of pray anytime if you want to, right?
Yes.
And so, but you usually pray at night,
Yes,
right?
sir.
And so, but kids can pray anytime for that, right? To help them feel better. Now, you pray to kind of get God to help you through what you're going through right then.
Yes,
right?
sir.
So prayer can be a great habit as you go through your grief journey.
Yes.
Just to help not just kind of make me feel good now, but make you feel good over the long haul.
Yes.
Right? Okay. Now, the second tool that you mentioned that could help kids on their grief journey is reading.
Yes.
Now, kind of describe that for me.
When you're reading books, it's like the pages are talking to you.
Now, what kind of, you talking about the grief books?
Yes.
Now, I know you've mentioned it in several other videos and things, but one of your favorite grief books was, which one was that?
What was it called?
When I'm with Jesus or something like that?
No, it was a little bug thing.
Oh, the bug book. That's the water bugs and dragonflies book.
Yes.
Okay.
And then my second favorite is When I'm with Jesus.
Okay, so you like the water bug and dragonfly book mostly.
Yes.
And so what was so special about that book?
What was so special about it is the water bugs, they were on the bottom of the ocean, I mean not the lake, and they would live, and then one day somebody would go up the stalking.
Yeah, the little stalk,
Yes.
cotton thing or whatever.
Well, it wasn't a cotton thing, it was like a little plant growing out of the
Okay.
lake. So one would travel up, and then they would stay, because they already had wings, they would stay on one of the lily pads, and then later they would wake up and they would have wings.
Like a dragonfly.
Yes, and then they would fly off because it's beautiful. So it would make it similar to about grief.
And so it was really about the transition of people from regular people to angels in heaven.
Yes.
And so what was so cool about it is it talked about when you get there, you can't come back. And you were a better person, right, than what you were before you went up there.
Yes, sir.
But you couldn't come back because you had changed.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So you talked about prayer. Don't get distracted. Just leave that there. We'll answer their questions later. Thank y'all for the comments. But they're starting to distract them. So let's stay focused. All right. So we talked about prayer. We talked about reading, and so reading is the book talking to you.
Yes.
Right. And I know you also talked about writing. So tell me a little bit about writing.
So when you start writing, you're getting all your emotions out of your body into paper, and then later you can start reading them. You can start reading them later.
And so that's kind of like for journaling or whatever.
Yes.
Okay, so you can go back and read it, but would it be okay if your parents or a counselor person or somebody else like that could come back and read it?
Yes.
Okay, kind of talk about that a little bit.
So like you can give it to somebody else. You can give the not the page. You can give the book to you can give your writing out to somebody else. So like let's say I'm writing down and I fill up a whole entire page, and then I'm like I need to tell somebody. So I give it to you. And then you start reading it, and then you're like, oh, that I've gone through that too, and then we start writing to each other about the same thing.
Okay. Now I know that a lot of adults have this thing called like a traveling journal that someone can write and they can send it to friends. So I guess kids could do that too. But then it's kind of putting your thoughts down. And I remember talking to some adults this weekend, because adults do journaling too. You write down how you're feeling today, and then you can go back and look at it next month or a year from now.
Put the date.
There you go. Yep.
And then write some more, and then see what's different then, and to try and figure out how that can help.
There you go. Okay, so we talk about how you're getting better through time.
Yes.
Or how things have changed through time. You can always reflect back on it.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So prayer, reading, writing, and then you talked about art. So what do you mean by art?
So you can draw your emotions out on paper, and then later you can look, the same thing as writing, but later you can look at your drawings. So you can draw things about angels or just anything to help you, like you could draw about your dog, to get anything like your emotions out on paper to help you.
Okay, so when we talked about it earlier, you were saying like sometimes you might draw your favorite things.
Yes.
And so what do you mean by that? Like a animal or something that you...
Like...
What? Like what?
So you can draw like animals, you can draw things, you can draw places, draw anything to help you get better through your grief.
Okay, so it's just like, so instead of writing, you kind of draw out stuff.
Yes.
And I remember this past weekend, we actually were at the family retreat for Camp Agape.
Yes, sir.
And they told me that one of the activities that the kids did was kind of draw out their grief house, right?
Yes, I did that.
And so that's one of those kind of things you're talking about, where you can kind of draw out your emotions and what's your favorite room in a house and stuff like that, right? Okay.
She would tell us what to do, like where to write it.
Okay. But you're kind of building a house that was kind of...
You could write whatever you want.
Okay.
Like about the same topic.
Yeah. Okay. So, number 1 is prayer. Number 2 is reading. Number 3 is writing. Number 4 is art. Number 5, you said talking to people.
Yes.
Okay, so
let's say we're talking to each other, and I'm going through grief, and so we changed the subject to grief, and I'm like, I'm feeling sad, and you're like, oh, I'm going through that too. And so we start talking, and we can help each other because we're each giving each other info about each other.
About grief and how you're feeling about grief. Now, will that work if you're talking to somebody else that doesn't have grief?
Yes, yes, because they can keep a secret, and then later, they can start, they will have grief, and then they know what to do.
Okay.
And then they can come back to you.
Okay, and so you can kind of talk about your grief experience.
Yes.
And so even if somebody doesn't have grief and you tell them about what's going on with you, maybe they'll have some tools for something that may or may not happen later in their life.
Yes, sir.
And kind of help them, and then they can remember, oh, I talked to Bryce about that, and this is what he did. Right? Yes. Something like that. Okay. And so those are great. So that's the first 5. Now, the last one is kind of a big word, because when I asked you, what you thought some tools were, you said something different, but what you described is what I would call memorializing. And that's kind of how you're remembering somebody that you love that passed away.
Yes.
Okay. And so I'm going to use the big word memorializing, but kind of tell me what you told me to make me say that word.
Have pictures of your loved one and pretend that you're holding their hand. So let's say I'm holding your hand, but the picture's there. Instead of holding their hand, you hold the picture.
Okay.
And you pray. We're going back to prayer. And you pray about your loved one and if you can make it to tomorrow.
Okay. And so you hold them while you pray to God, right?
Yes.
And it helps you remember them and think about them like you're praying with them. So they're with you when you're praying to God to help you feel better.
Yes, sir.
Now, does it only have to be a picture? Can it be other stuff?
Yes.
Okay. Because I know that in our situation, we have other things of Alana's, like we have blankets and toys and stuff like that.
My favorite toy is like, it says something and it's just like you press its little stomach and it starts talking.
Oh, yeah, it makes different musical notes.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's like a harmonizing kind of bear animal thing, some kind of funny-looking animal. But so you can memorialize people in different ways. Yes. Now, how does that help you, though? I mean, because I know you have some favorite items or favorite things of Alana's that you have in your room. If you don't mind talking about them.
So I have like my Alana's picture, and sometimes I just do this. Okay. I just stroke it to feel better, and sometimes I just grab it and squeeze it. Okay,
and so that's kind of how we remember people or memorialize them with different things.
Yes.
Right. Now I'm gonna check and see what people are saying. Yeah, they just want to say you're doing a great job, and
I see. Baby said that's art therapy. Take it out.
Yep, talk it out.
Oh, talk it out. I thought it said take it out.
And so, is there anything else that you kind of have that you want to talk to people about?
No, not really.
Okay.
Not for
and so,
today.
I remember before that. There was a couple of other things that people were saying and asking, and I'm trying to get to that real quick. Yeah, so I remember one person last week was asking, if kids are younger than you, or you're an older kid and they ask you to kind of come speak to other kids. I know you have these tools, but like what else would you tell kids? I know we kind of talked about this a little bit last week. And so what else would you kind of tell kids along with these tools to kind of help them? How could they tell the adults or the parents in their lives that these tools they would like to start trying to do?
So the main thing would be praying, because you're like praying to God, and God is helping you, because nothing would happen if God didn't help.
Okay.
So
you mean as far as healing?
Yes.
Healing wouldn't help if God didn't. Healing wouldn't happen if God didn't help. Okay.
Yes. So, and then the second thing would be talking to people, because we talked about this last week, getting your feelings out and talking to other people. And then the last one would be more
memorializing.
Yes.
Yeah. So having things around of the person that you love, and that can kind of help you remember them and think about the good stuff.
Yes, because when you're doing memorializing, so all the ones I just said are help, like the main things,
right.
But the other stuff is like if you want to do all of that, it's like reading, writing, art. That's like kind of extra, but it still helps.
Okay.
Like if you don't like doing memorializing or talking to people, just do like art or writing or something.
So you don't have to do all 6.
No.
You've done all 6 at some different level.
Yes.
Now, of the 6, which ones do you think you do most?
Talking to people.
Okay. And
sometimes I'm shy, but I try my best to. Well, I'm shy right now. Well,
Okay.
like I'm a little scared.
It's okay. And so talking to people, you mean
Yes.
talking to other kids that are grieving, or what do you mean by talking to people?
I mean, like, I'm talking to other kids or talking to other kids who are not grieving.
Okay. You just like talking. And
Yes.
then sometimes the grief comes up, sometimes it doesn't come up.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I can see how talking would be high on your list. Well, I mean, it's like when you were telling me about the twos before, you were actually talking about how all the different twos are forms of talking.
Yes.
So you're talking to God. That's prayer, right?
Yes.
When you read, the book talks to you, right?
Yes.
When you write, you're talking to the paper.
Yes.
Art, well, I guess it's kind of talking to you, expressing yourself.
Yes.
Okay. Then you're actually talking to people, right? And then memorializing, I guess that's not
Like
talking.
praying. 'Cause
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It goes back to praying.
Oh, so memorializing is like praying.
Yes. To me, it is.
Okay. No, that can work. And so it's like you with the person you love praying.
Yes.
Okay. Kind of a combo thing. Okay. What did you do early on in your grief? Okay, let me read the questions.
Okay.
Stay here. What did you do early on in your grief before you started using these tools? What did you do?
I started crying most of the time.
Okay.
I started getting upset.
Okay.
All that happened. I started getting upset, really mad, and start crushing, like, sometimes,
Squeezing your hands.
yeah, like squeezing hands or squeezing your hand. So I would be like this,
Okay.
like trying to crush your hand because I was really mad.
Okay. And so these tools help you get through some of
Yes.
that
Now
anger
it's
and
like
stuff.
sometimes I just squeeze your hand just a little bit, not like
Yeah.
trying to crush it.
Yeah. Okay. So not as intense, but you still kind of squeeze my
Yes.
hand sometimes and stuff like that. Okay. And so the tools actually help you relax and flow with it, right?
Yes.
And so that's pretty cool that even in the first, 2 years, because Alana passed away 2 years ago. So even within this 2 years, you're handling it a different way.
Yes.
And it's not as intense and kind of stuff, but it's kind of, you can do these things here and you can kind of
Yes.
go down the journey a little bit better. Yeah, that's part of the healing process. And adults do that too.
Yes,
We go
sir.
through kind of an anger thing and we get better. It's okay. I see it. I see it. It's all right.
It's okay.
I see it. It's all right. All right. So we thank you all for just coming out tonight. Next week is actually Thanksgiving. And so I think we're going to do a special video that week to kind of talk about the holidays
Yes.
and how we do the
we all be doing. I thought it was like okay, nah.
Well, I mean,
It's okay.
it's another Tuesday, but it's 2 days before Thanksgiving. So you think we should do a video talk about the holidays a little bit and how we handle the holidays?
Yes.
Okay. And it can help people talk about holidays a little bit. We won't stay that long.
Okay.
It'll be
like,
kind of short.
It'd be like 15 minutes or
Oh,
something
yeah.
like that.
Oh, yeah. We'll do that.
Like, because right now it's like 7 or 17 minutes right now.
Yeah, something like that. But so we'll talk next week a little while, a short video about how we're working through the holidays and how other people can work through the holidays. Right?
Yes.
That'll be good. And then the last video we're going to do a Q&A. So for that,
Questions and answers.
yeah, Q&A. So we would love for people to send in questions that we can answer live that night. But if not, send us in your questions and we'll compile them all and we'll just do a Q&A. Just what questions do you have for Bryce as it relates to grief? We can talk about things we've already talked
Or we
about.
could just like, the questions are right there.
Yeah, but everybody don't really chime in right now. Some people watch the replay.
Oh.
And so we'll work it either way. We'll work it both ways. All right. So, but please, if you can be here live, that'd be excellent. If not, send your questions in and we'll list them all down and we'll answer them on air that night. So what about that?
Yes.
Be good. All right. So until next time, I am Bradley Vincent, Alana's pawpaw, and this is Bryce.
Alana's big sister.
Big
brother. I can't.
You'll get it. 2 more videos. You'll get it right before we get done. All right. But we thank y'all for coming out tonight and be blessed, be free. We'll see y'all next week. Bye.
Bye.